If you're a CTO walking around thinking that being miserable is part of the job, this video might save your career and your sanity. We need to talk about why so many engineering leaders seem to be walking around thinking that being miserable is okay, not realizing that it's completely unnecessary. In this video, we'll talk about how to have more fun at work, realizing why it's so critical. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive, coach, and consultant, and I help people just like you create teams worth leading. And you bet they're worth leading only if you're not wasting your life feeling miserable. Taking a step back, I'll say that having fun is something that I think is critical, sort of how I ended up making up my job. But also, most often when I talk with a client for the first time, one of the very first questions I ask is, are you having fun? Not every minute of every day, but in general. Is the work something that you're actually enjoying or not? Because if not, we have bigger problems than talking about the org structure probably. We need to tackle that first and make sure that you're where you're supposed to be. There is no way around it. And being miserable should not be your default. Often a lot of people seem to have the martyr complex. They think that they're supposed to be those taking all the annoying stuff off everyone else's plate in their team and from their peers. They walk around thinking that they're supposed to be those people who are always at the front. And of course, as a leader, you're supposed to be there. But that doesn't mean that you have to take up everything. Because what ends up happening when you have this martyr complex that you're wasting months, sometimes even years, walking around feeling like you have no energy, like you're in a constant battle, like everything is an uphill battle and you cannot do anything without always feeling the drag of everything that's happening around you. I've seen it happen so many times. I've lived it too. So I understand it, but it's not something that's a law of nature. It does not have to be like that. Don't try to always be the caretaker for everyone, trying to protect everyone emotionally, trying to ensure that no one ever is upset, trying to make sure that you isolate the team from any interference from the outside world, because first of all, you're never going to win that battle. And second, it's just not worth it and it's not the right thing to do. Yes, I'm sure you have some noble justifications and some of these might sound familiar. Telling yourself, it's my job to protect them from all the noise so they can focus. Or I want to make sure that they don't see everything that's happening, all the turmoil, so they don't get nervous. Or I am the leader and therefore this is my thing. This is what I do. I am the one that always has to take the bullet. And I'm guessing some of these at least feel like your inner dialogue. And that's a problem, because when we do it like that, you put the wrong things first. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can create a healthy team without being constantly miserable, without always being the martyr. When we do that, you actually have 4 very bad consequences that maybe you don't realize. The first one, which should be clear, is you end up burning out. Why? Because you're essentially acting like a stress lightning rod. You're taking all the stress, all the headaches, and you're collecting them to yourself. So, we're all human. There's only so long you can do it. You end up living day after day, being miserable. Every day is like a new war. And that means that at some point, you're going to say, that's it. At some point, it's going to come the straw that breaks the camel's back. You cannot keep doing this forever. You don't need to, but that's what's happening. You end up burning out more and more. Maybe you end up your days feeling like you're always so exhausted. Maybe when you're at home, you feel like you're always on edge. You're always angry. You're always tipsy. You always you tend to lash out too much when something happens, even minor stuff, and you don't do that at work. Why? Because you get all this pent up stress and all this pent up anger, and you keep shielding the team, but it has to go out somewhere. And I've seen it happen too many times, and I'm telling you, you do not want to be there. Second, you're actually stunting the team's growth, because by being the person that's always abstracting things from them. What a nice way of saying that. You're essentially over-coddling them. You're preventing them from having enough friction with the real world to grow faster, to understand how things actually work. It means that they always have to work through you via proxy, so they never can have enough autonomy. They never feel enough ownership for things because mommy is always around to make sure that they're not making any mistakes, they're not hearing anything that can make them feel bad. And you're always there making the translations, ensuring that everything makes sense. They only get the food after you've chewed on it a bit for them, which, might be nice the first couple of weeks at the job, but it cannot be that way forever. And you end up creating a team that's always stuck. That's a bunch of Peter Pans who remain boys forever. They never grow up into what they can grow up because you're always there capping their growth. I know that's not your intention, but that's what you end up doing. You yourself essentially grow resentful, which is the third bad consequence of this, because we're all human. And what ends up happening is that with time, you start losing trust with your people. I've seen it all the time where CTOs and VPs of engineering I worked with ended up being so resentful of their teams and of their peers because they feel like they keep doing everything, stopping all the bullets, being on top of everything. And then when people end up asking another thing or giving you some feedback, you feel like, what's going on? I mean, I'm doing all of this, why can't they do something? But you're essentially preventing them from doing that. You're teaching them to do the precise thing that ends up making you burn out, making you resentful. There's a growing gap between your experience and their experience, which is filled with your bitterness most of the time. And we don't want to allow the chasm to continue growing. We want to make sure that you put a stop to it and hopefully start making it go much, much smaller till it goes away or close to that. And one last, the fourth consequence is that actually most of the times you're not going to get any credit for it anyway, which just adds for you being resentful and for the team not growing, because people don't even realize that it's what you're doing, or they take it for granted because you've been doing it forever. They feel like that's what you like doing, whatever. This is actually what happens when people just grow up assuming that that's your role. They're not going to give you any credit. Like the kids who are used to their parents picking up everything after them because they never do it and their parents always end up doing it. Those kids are not going to say, oh, wow, my parents are so nice, they always pick up after me. No, just going to take it for granted, not grow. The parents are going to get even more resentful and no one even understands what the other is doing. So these are all real factors, and you need to ensure that you're not going to get sucked into this. You need to put a stop to it to ensure that your career does not take that direction, or at least doesn't continue going in that direction. The shift: stop using the wrong metrics. Don't think about how much hassle you've saved people, how many times you've been in there and you interjected to ensure that nothing happens. Instead, start thinking about the right metrics that are actually going to show progress over time, because you can keep interjecting, but that doesn't mean that the situation is improving, only that you keep putting on the band-aids in time. Instead, have different metrics. Your metrics as a leader should be, are things improving, first of all? So when you're looking at things, it might be that sometimes you have to pull in that IC, that team manager. It's not always just you doing it, but are we seeing a constant improvement? Are things actually getting better? Because if that's the case, then it means that their involvement is actually helping make things better. We're not just using them as band-aids like you yourself end up doing, because a lot of the times CTOs do not have the time to treat the root causes of things, or they don't have enough room on their plate to make something their responsibility. If you actually make a decision to delegate it to a team and then an entire team can tackle it, maybe they can solve it completely. Maybe, if not, they can at least rotate and have the hassle be something that's just part of the job. Another one of those things that we have to do, as opposed to you always having to be on edge, a single person doing it, and you have so many other things going on, right? And the second metric should be, are you seeing that at least you're not repeating the same things? So not only we want to see that things are improving in general, like the team is getting better, we're learning better, etc., but that we're solving things once, that the sort of situation where you had to call someone is the situation that at least does not happen again. We learn because we have a better system. We fix the process. We add another test. We add another protection. We add another system. We do something to ensure that these scenarios do not end up repeating. So it's not like your role is to ensure that no one ever gets a call. It's to ensure that at least your promise to them, the contract should be, if something's urgent, we're going to ask you to help us with that. Or if things change, we're going to ask you to help us with that. But we're also trying to ensure that you're not going to see it happen again. Okay? We're going to learn from things. And that's, by the way, sometimes the one thing that you always have to do, right? If you have an outage, you want to ensure that it's not repeating itself. But also, if you have to change plans, if you have to change whatever you were planning for this quarter or whatever, it's okay to tell it to your people and show them that things have to change, but also to show them at least what we're learning from it, how we're trying to minimize it, or why it actually makes sense. When you have these metrics, not the metrics of protection, but the metrics of always getting better, things get a lot easier. You allow yourself to not always be there, the stopgap. You want to accept radical transparency, as opposed to being an abstraction layer and trying to abstract from them 90-80% of the things. Flip it around. You want to ensure that actually your team, the managers reporting to you, the ICs, know pretty much 80% of what's going on. You need to be the abstraction layer only for those things that actually are still very, very delicate, or that can actually cause a lot of harm or stress, which shouldn't be a daily situation. Should only be those things that are extremely rare, only happen once a quarter or so, once a month at most. It shouldn't be your daily operation that you're swooping in there to avoid someone having to interact with something. Instead, default to having people you can trust on, default to treating them like adults and having the ability to be part of a conversation, come to that discussion, have those decisions be made without you always having to be that person in the room and making all of the decisions. Trust your team that they can do it. If you don't trust them, no one will, and they won't trust themselves either. The payoff is that you're going to have fun again. You remember how that was? I don't know how many years ago. You can have it again. And if it doesn't come to you naturally, you still have to work on how to do it. It's not just, okay, I'm listening to you, Aviv, saying we need to do this and that, but I don't know how to translate that. Hey, I'm here. You have my email in the video description, and I'll be happy to have a free diagnostic call to help you get there, because that's what I do. But regardless, this should be your number one goal. Make 2026 the year you enjoy your work again. You deserve it. And not only that, when you do it, everyone benefits, because your team will have a leader that's actually having fun, actually energized, actually present and enjoying, not burned out. And second, the team will start growing so much faster. They will get the ability to do the things that they were not able to do till now. It might not fit 100% of your team, but it will probably fit at least 90% of those people, and those people are going to shine. They can grow. You will have a better time. This is a win-win situation in the making. It's just waiting for you to start realizing that mind shift and start going towards it. Nothing is in your way to get there. Only you. Do it, see how problems start getting solved for real, not you putting on the band-aid, but actually your people will have the time to ensure that it doesn't happen. When they see that no one is going to fix the mess for them, they're going to do things better in the first place because they don't have money to pick up things in the room anyway. And they will all start working so much better together, because they will have to learn how to work with others in the team, in the department, in the organization, and you won't always be there like the hub, making sure that everyone talks correctly, communicates, says the right things. You will let them grow, and you, my friend, will have a bit of fun. I hope that I got you to think a bit more about how you're operating your day-to-day and not just continue in your default way of doing things, to improve, upgrade, and change a bit how you're operating, so you will get back to having a good time as you're doing it. Life's too short to do anything else. Again, if you have any questions, if you need help with anything, my email is in the video description. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. It really helps. And I'll see you here in the next video. Ciao.